Okay, we're live. Hi everyone, welcome to today's From the Source webinar by SourceFlow. Today we're going to be discussing the black hole that most recruitment and staffing firms have when it comes to consistently gathering actionable insights from candidates, clients and consultants that can actually empower leaders to drive growth through positive change. And we are also introducing our new platform that solves these problems, SourceFlow Engagement. I'm Will Astbury, I'm Global Head of Marketing here at SourceFlow. And before joining SourceFlow, I spent nearly a decade leading marketing teams within recruitment businesses. So when I talk about the challenges that agencies face in terms of gathering and using feedback, I've really felt the pain that is around that job. So hopefully I can add some insights here. We're going to explore those challenges a little bit more deeply in a second. But before we jump in, I just want to make clear that this session is pre-recorded due to the availability of the speakers. So if you want to ask any questions, please do so in the LinkedIn live chat and our team will be monitoring it and we'll get back to you ASAP. Right, let's get into it, guys. I'll just introduce today's agenda. So we're going to do some intros of the speakers in just a second. Then we're going to set the scene by talking about the challenges that recruitment firms are facing and how many of them are operating with their eyes closed. Then we're going to actually get under the bonnet of the platform that we're talking about today, SourceFlow Engagement, and have a bit of a product demo. Then we're going to do a case study based on some insights from one of our early adopters of SourceFlow Engagement. And then we're just going to summarize it all at the end with a few more insights. So hopefully we won't take up too much of your lunchtime. Without further ado, let's introduce the speakers. So Rebecca, as you're the guest, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure thing. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm Rebecca, Lauder-Fletcher, Head of Marketing and Ops at SGI. We've been working with SourceFlow since inception. So is that 3 or 4 years? Slowly but surely picking up different products and seeing how they add value to our marketing operations function and business return. So, lovely to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us. And Helen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Helen Taylor, Head of Customer Experience here at SourceFlow. I've been in the recruitment and marketing industry for 10 years now, which makes me feel really old. But yeah, I've seen all the challenges faced over that time. So yeah, really excited to kind of help solve some of these problems for this new launch.
Right, guys. Well, thanks both for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. And we're going to have some group therapy now. So obviously, in terms of gathering feedback and actioning feedback, I think most of the industry is really guessing about what improvements their business needs. You know, obviously people are seeing what's happening in the offices, they're hearing what's happening on the ground from their consultants, but a lot of it is anecdotal. And I don't know if that's been your experience. That's certainly been my experience up until this point. I don't know if that's been your experience as well, Rebecca.
Yes, definitely. I think there's a divide between what the front office or sales team hear and what is actual kind of real knowledge and how they're interpreting that, and what feedback actually means to them too.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, and we've outlined a lot of the challenges here, and I think the reason for that is it's quite a laborious process gathering that feedback, isn't it? You know, you've got to kind of go, right, once a month, a week, a period of time, right, we're going to go and gather some feedback. And, you know, a person has got to set up the survey, they've got to send out the survey, they've got to hope that they get some responses. They've got to send more surveys. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, from the conversations I've had, it's been a very manual task. So it's either, like you said, it's taken up a lot of resource, or it's just a bit of a black hole, like no one actually knows what's being said, or something comes as a surprise, you know, no one's checked in with someone and they think everything's fine, and then actually it's really not, because no one's thought to ask the right questions and no one's doing the doing. So
100%. And I think that because of the nature of the size of many ops and marketing teams within the industry as well, a big task like that, if you're working on a load of other big tasks, that one might get pushed to the side, it might get deprioritized, so it becomes inconsistent. And then you've kind of, those surveys are kind of sent and analyzed alone by themselves quite often. And so there's minimal sort of high level views about repeated problems that might be occurring in that data. There's very little being garnered from it. It's kind of, oh, quick, there's a major issue mentioned in that one response, or here's a fantastic bit of feedback that we just received, let's get that out there. But there's not that kind of ongoing process of analysis of feedback to drive business change.
Yeah, I think we're getting a lot of happy ears, oh, someone's had a really good experience, let's send a survey out now, because obviously you want to, shout about that particular experience, but actually that's not probably the reality of 90% of the time. So I'm not saying you always get bad feedback, but it's not like a consistent and fair view of things.
Jumping onto that, it's also about understanding that bad feedback is good feedback and educating that across the business, and that feeding that bad feedback into processes can create success. And I can currently see that there can definitely be some divide on that, and actually being unsure of whether they actually want to trust that kind of data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can get a bit browbeaten when you work in the recruitment industry, especially with, from a reputational point of view, which I think is very unfair, by the way. But, sometimes it's not obviously nice to hear negative things, but you learn more when you lose, don't you? You learn so much more when you gain those insights. You hear from a candidate that might be a rock star candidate that just weren't successful in that particular opportunity. You learn so much from a client that you didn't work with about why they didn't want to work with you if you ask them. And this is the power of feedback. And I think if you can be systematic and gather this data on an ongoing basis, you are really going to start getting a bigger picture of the problems within your business, the processes you can improve, and where you can get to. So I don't know if anyone else had any other points that you kind of wanted to mention around these things, but if not, we can kind of move on to how SourceFlow Engagement actually solves some of these problems.
Yep.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, Helen, shall I switch to your demo screen?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Will just kind of rightly said, there isn't a consistent
Sorry, mate. I think you've got to switch to the actual demo tab. That's it. Perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, as Will just said, we aren't consistently getting feedback. So SourceFlow Engagement will now allow you to automatically trigger surveys out on however kind of cadence ever you want, but once it's set up, it's super easy. So you basically see this as an extension of your SourceFlow platform, and it kind of bridges the gap between marketing and operations. So as a marketer, you're very used to kind of seeing this back end of our demo website. And it's just an extension here. So along the left, you've got engagement, and then you've got your 3 different channels that you'll want to be looking at. So just hop into candidates whilst it loads. So this is kind of a high level approach, which maybe some of the marketing team will be relevant to. We can basically lock this down on permissions basis. So along the top here, you've got your various different surveys. So this might be candidates been placed, send out a survey week 1. Candidates been placed, send out a survey week 4. Contractors coming up for renewal, you can basically send out these at different times. And as long as they're in the different trigger points, that survey will be sent. So at the moment, we're fully integrated with Bullhorn. As long as they go into that different touch point, that survey will be sent. And we can also do it as a manual upload. We'll be looking to expand our integrations offering as well out in the future. So yeah, you've got your various surveys here at the top. You've got different pillars along the side here. So looking at quality, communication, understanding and professionalism. Each survey can be completely customized in terms of the questions, if that's like open-ended, closed questions. You can even do like video testimonials, responses back. We just want to make sure that each question is against one of those pillars. So then when you're getting each survey, you can start to benchmark those responses. So you can see last month quality was a 4, but this month quality is a 4.6. So we've gone up. So it's just easy to be able to understand the differences in the score points.
Can I just add in there, Helen, something that I really love about it is this is your bigger picture. This little snapshot of screen here, the bigger picture that's missing that we've talked about previously, which is where you're at in terms of how your processes are scoring in terms of what your candidates are saying or what your clients are saying. And the summary that you can see on the left that is the bigger picture overview of all of your responses with themes picked out, telling you where the problems are. That's how powerful it is. But really, really love this initial view that I always see when I'm looking at our surveys. Sorry, go on, Helen.
No worries. So yeah, you've got your different pillars, and then the kind of end goal will be to look at doing like industry benchmarking, so you can see actually how the wider platform's doing. As Will said, you've got an AI generated summary, so you've got 29 responses off this particular survey. That's going to be quite a manual task, which previously it would have been for someone to read through. This does the hard work for you. So if you want to report back to the board, you can basically just grab this and pass it on. It's done all the hard work of reading through those scores and done all the understanding for you. As you scroll down, you can also see each one of those responses to those surveys. So Isaac here, you can understand each one of his responses and how he's basically saying understanding's a 10, but quality was a 5, and you can deep dive into each one of those reasons why. If the marketing team was in here, they don't need to then go to the operations manager and ask for some testimonials. They had a great testimonial that they wanted to push onto the website. They can just go straight into here and push that forward. So it's really seamless to kind of bridge that gap between the two teams. We've then got clients, which is very similar sort of layout. So this can be set up as regular as you want. You might want to do like a quarterly check-in with clients. So send out those different surveys, which can be completely customized. Might be different questions at different stages of their life cycle with you. So again, exact same layout, but you can grab it and you can just put it onto like your client's page, for example, if they've got an individual page about them. And then the consultant, very similar but slightly different pillars. So you've got connection, well-being, fulfillment, and leadership. I feel like they're more relevant to the consultants. Rebecca, have you got anything to add to this kind of like high-level summary? I'm going to hop into the engagement products in a bit more detail now, but any kind of like points that you absolutely love from using it from this side?
I'd say definitely having that summary feature is like a game changer in terms of reporting. Because as we've said, it was very manual before. Going through each individual response, looking at the patterns, then trying to create some form of cohesive summary yourselves. But by having this AI summary every month, jumping in just before our board update, it's really good. And it's really easy to digest from both an operations and a sales perspective. And that's what we kind of always need to keep focus on.
Amazing, perfect. So yeah, behind this, we've got a much more in-depth platform engagement. So I'll just focus on the actual surveys. So this is our demo environment Rectronic. And in here, you can see all the surveys that have actually been sent out. So you can see when they've started, when they've closed, and the amount they've been completed. So we just hop into this one, which is candidates placed, and it's been sent out in February. You can see the survey's been closed, and you can see the kind of response rate so far on these. Started and closed, and then you've got your overall score, which you can easily digest. If you work in an NPS style as a company, you can just change it and all the scores will change. You don't need to do any of the calculations on that front. And as you go down, you can start to understand how those pillars kind of break down. So you can see the different questions in the area and to kind of understand how the data looks. And you can break it down even further. So you've got the NPS style, how likely would you to recommend Rectronic to a friend? You can see the responses in here, the detractors, promoters, and neutrals. If you want to do it as a bar chart, you can just change it. Like Rebecca said, if you're going to report to a board, you can just copy that very easily and put it into your own reporting. Coming very soon is customizable dashboards, though, so you can start to really pinpoint the data that you want to send, so you can just screen grab it or save it as a PDF and pass it on to the board.
I love that feature. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times spent fiddling around on Excel or Google Sheets trying to put together some decent figures. So the fact you can kind of take it with you, the image with you of the chart, and just drop it into your deck, that is absolutely, it's an absolute game changer. It's just going to save you half an hour.
Exactly.
The same with the AI summary that you showed just a second ago. It'll save you an hour of just going through reports, as Rebecca just said. So I love those features. And I think the other good point about it is the automated point, that these are being sent. This survey's been set up and it's been dripped out during that month.
Exactly.
It's not kind of just going, right, we need to send one on this day, quick, let's do it. it's organised. It's
Exactly.
it's considered, and it's been sent out in a systematic way. So, these insights they're more qualitative. There's more of them. They're longer term.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the setup as well, if you're with Bullhorn, you probably already integrated the full website anyway, so it's super easy for us to kind of configure it. It's not going to be a long integration process. It's just an extension of that integration. And then once it's configured, it kind of runs for itself. Rebecca, how was your experience kind of onboarding, getting things set up?
Really straightforward. As you've said, we did already have our integration in place for website in any case. I actually tend to use this side of the platform more than the interface that's actually within the CMS, just because you have a lot more data in there too, and always kind of go to that first. But yeah, can't even say. I mean, in terms of kind of field mapping, just knowing what your customer journeys are as well was really key, and knowing kind of how you can map the engagement to Bullhorn in terms of what your candidate journeys look like and your client journeys. But once we got going with one or two, it all then started to fall into place, and we could start to see them working straight away.
Definitely. So yeah, you've got all the questions down here. You can see what each of these questions are tagged against as well. Like question 2 is quality. To what extent do you agree with the statement? I received great quality information about the jobs and the company I was put forward for. So you can start to see how that ties in. And then if we go further down to the kind of open-ended questions, you've got all your responses here. You've got the AI generated summary, and then it's pulling out kind of keywords as well here. Kind of the next crucial and key point, which I guess separates us from a lot of similar platforms as well, is how we can then segment this data a lot further. So one of my favorite features in here is the question heat mapping. So you can start to look at pinpoint, branches, sectors, and start to see how people are performing against other areas. So these are color coordinated, so they're really easy to read. So you can see here the Harrogate branch is underperforming compared to Bedford, which is slightly doing better, or Loughborough. And then you can start to see where the areas of improvement are required. So we can just hop into specialism. There's been no question set up for sales and commercial, but you can start to see, professionalism, professional services is underperforming compared to operations. So yeah, absolutely love this feature in here, which is just really easy to kind of start to see where the problems are and deep dive a bit into it.
Massive, this one as well, I think, Helen, because if you're a recruitment leader and you're overseeing multiple offices, and you want to be able to say to the office manager, the person who's in head of sales in that office, you've got some challenges with this process. This is the thing we need to work on. And this is how you kind of raise quality across the board in the organization, rather than just being, one office is improved where a manager is driving it, whereas others aren't. So it's such a great way to take a holistic view again.
Definitely. Yeah, that's kind of everything I wanted to show for today. You've got a lot more kind of configuration to kind of go into what we can kind of do that in a product demo if people want to learn a bit more about this product.
There we go. And let's just put the slides back on. So Helen, again, thanks so much for giving us a demo of that product. As you said, we're going to be inviting people for personalized calls and personalized demos about the product to see how it could work for you at the end. So stay tuned for that. Right, Rebecca, in terms of specifics, as I said, SGI have been an early adopter. Can you tell us a little bit about why you first decided to go for SourceFlow Engagement and what the thinking was around that?
Yes, of course. So a few years ago, we realised and recognised we needed to start some form of customer feedback strategy or NPS strategy at this point. And we started with the transactional. So after a placement made, we did have an automated platform which would send out a simple NPS question to the candidate, to the client. And that was mainly for testimonials, for personal brand for our consultant sales team, and essentially to get good feedback and reviews for marketing. But what we were seeing is brilliant. We were getting 5 out of 5. We were getting 80, 90%. We could happily go to market and say, we've got an 89% NPS score. Brilliant. But did that mean anything in terms of processes, acting as a revenue generating tool for the business, not really. So after discussion and kind of research about what we could potentially do, we came to the conversation with SourceFlow around engagement, and my board very much supported if we could start getting customer feedback at different touch points, so we could actually start to understand where there are opportunities, where we could have escaped from losing that job, for example, or losing that placement, or improving our processes centrally.
Well, sorry to interrupt there. If you don't mind me asking, what were the kind of touch points they were hoping to kind of get more information on?
Yeah, of course. So mainly, as we are more of a contract heavy business, it was our regular touch points with our contractor base. We do, from a sales team perspective, have as many touch points as they can with their contractors, but it's relying upon human interaction and reminders to take a phone call. So just having that month as a first kind of workflow, that monthly touch point with our contractors, allows us to understand how they are with the customer, if there's any kind of warning bells, but also when they're coming to the end of their contract, we are fully aware and engaged with them to potentially extend them on as a kind of example of workflow. A second one was placed candidates, placed clients, based on certain timings. So when the placement is added and when the candidate starts. So you're keeping kind of that just constant but light communication. And another kind of example one would be a candidate on the permanent side who'd been in the job for X amount of months after the placement. So again, you're capturing that first few months period to ensure that they are solidified and happy in their role. We have got about, I think, 4 or 5 workflows currently running. We're keeping that stable now, but as we've got more data running through, potentially in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll look to expand those if we do need to survey any other points of the customer journey.
Amazing. And am I right in thinking you guys send them out via email? Because we have got obviously the WhatsApp channel, kind of, you can send out a conversational view, but you've got branded emails?
Yeah, we have them all branded emails. So triggered from Bullhorn when the action happens in our placements or within our customer tags, and then the email comes out from SGI to the customer.
Amazing.
And in terms of reporting, how has that changed what the kind of reporting that you're able to give to the board? Because you said that was something they were really interested in.
Before, we were able to give our number instead, our NPS number. So when it came to reporting customer reviews in the board meeting, it would just be a number, how we compared to last year, how many reviews has come through. Great. But again, that's not necessarily data that means anything and we can use. So the feedback we've got now, especially using those the AI summaries, we're starting to see the patterns. So whether that be around communication, contracts, anything like that, that's the kind of actionable insights I can feed back to the board. And it's relevant to every department in the business, the feedback we're getting. So we're getting our positive feedback, brilliant. We still need to push that to the front. But if there are anything around any form of business processes or operational processes that we can improve, then we're also taking that to the board and making those actions.
Well, amazing. And if you don't mind me asking, can you give an example of like a business decision that's been taken as a result of some of this feedback?
We've had some conversations around pay and insurance of contractors. I won't go into too much of information there, but
sure.
Made some changes.
Okay. I appreciate that's a difficult and strategic level question to ask, but just interested to kind of see the kind of conversations that are brought to light by this kind of level of feedback. So fantastic.
Yeah, I think I guess almost talking about it from a not negative, but a different direction too, though. It's about taking back to my first point I've said around our kind of front office, our sales team, and around that trust of reviews and feedback too. Everyone needs to appreciate that feedback is is positive, although it may seem negative at first. It's about taking us to the next level of improvement and taking us further. And that's been really important on our journey with this, with engagement. Kind of about having that sales and marketing real partnership or educational aspect of saying that this feedback coming through will be different and will be different to what you've had before, but it's going to help us in the future and in the long run about being the best partner for our customers. So I'd say that's really kind of is a key point too.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? I think if you've got strong consultants that have a growth mindset, they're really going to value that kind of insight, because you're literally having people tell you, we want it to be done better and we want it to be done like this, which is such a massively useful thing. Yeah. So yeah, I think that is incredible.
If people are seeing that change as well, obviously they'll feel like a valued partner. So, making those actionable changes is going to make the world of difference in retaining people and helping grow SGI, as you said.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. Did you have any more questions at this stage, Helen?
I don't think so. I think we've covered everything off. As far as I'm aware.
I think I've covered a lot of it as well. And the only other thing I was going to ask Rebecca was, have you got any other ideas about how you wanted to use SourceFlow Engagement moving forward?
Of course. So we do still have our other platform for the testimonial aspect, just because also we have a library of testimonials from the X amount of years that we've got. But I'd love to see engagement have a bit of an integration with something like Google Reviews or another kind of external facing public platform. So, I mean, if you're looking at it from a consultant perspective, Glassdoor, you're looking at it from a client or candidate perspective, so you've got your Google Reviews, just prompting again another platform that creates brand exposure and reach for good quality customer service.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other side of it too, which might be going on a bit of a tangent, but consultant access to the platform. So seeing it, could we have a consultant-facing interface integrated in Bullhorn, for example, so that the team can jump in, grab their reviews and use them on their social platforms. So again, it becomes more of a personal branding tool or social selling tool for the sales team as well.
Yeah, I know there's been lots of discussions around that, so watch this space, let's say. But yeah, I definitely think that's something we could look to enable.
I think talking about industry headaches, that Google review one has been bashed over my head a lot of times in my career, and it is, I think we were talking about it on a prep call, weren't we? And I was saying, that it does feel like the Wild West in terms of Google reviews. Especially around negativity, and I think any system that can help raise the bar there and improve how recruitment companies are represented in Google reviews would be massive. It's something I'd love to see in the product as well.
And I think also from a talent perspective, so from a consultant perspective, there's some sort of statistic that says that the new generation going into work are looking for reviews and feedback on places like Glassdoor before they make decisions. So businesses looking at fresh grads, academy setup, any kind of training style, who are looking at people who are just going into work or in their first or second year, like having that connection with this review platform could be beneficial if that works.
Absolutely. And I think the personal brand element as well that you mentioned is massive as well. Anything that you can do to make that easier for consultants is really important, right? Because they've got a lot of tasks to do. They're expected to nurture their personal brands as well. There's a small marketing team trying to help 30 consultants with all their personal brands. So anything that we can do to kind of give them those little snapshots that they can easily share is massive, isn't it? So yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah, two come very hand in hand, don't they? You've got your strategic operation side, which is very much engagement, and then you've got your forward kind of facing marketing piece, which would be kind of the platforms that you've mentioned. So kind of marrying the two would be great.
Absolutely. Any other points that we kind of? Oh, the other thing that I was interested that you spoke about on our prep call, Rebecca, was survey fatigue. And about structuring surveys, because obviously we're talking about automation here, and we're talking about email, we're talking about WhatsApp. And I know that a lot of people will be concerned about the amount of emails they send already. They're going to be concerned about nurturing those client relationships and making sure they don't burn any bridges by surveying them as well. What was your thinking in terms of that when you were kind of putting together the workflows for SGI?
Of course. That's kind of where we had to think about each workflow having a solely different purpose or different audience. There is always going to be some form of crossover. But if there was crossover, that's where we changed the length of the surveys. So some of your surveys would be 6 questions, some could be 3, some could be 1 or 2 because they're a pulse survey. And with that, actually the 1 or 2 question surveys, we've found we've got more and more responses every month as they've gone out, increasing. So yeah, just again, looking at the audiences, is that perm candidate going to be receiving the same survey every 3 months? If not, potentially looking at changing that. And thinking about each workflow acting for a different purpose. Hopefully that answers it.
No, I think it's a fantastic response. And I think it's a fantastic response because the whole point of this whole process is caring about your clients. And it's caring about your candidates. And you want them to tell you what they think. You care what they think because you want those insights to improve your business. But also taking that care with the surveys is another element of care. Not to badger them, to be considerate. It's massive. So again, the way you handle this process is another form of care for your clients and candidates. And I think that will elevate your brand in their eyes as well if you do it in the right way. So yeah, great thinking around that.
Yeah, I think less is more with surveys, isn't it? You don't want to be hit with like a 20-question survey. It's going to put someone off. And we've kind of got the 2 different channels now. So I know you said at the moment you go and send them out via email, but we've also got the option to send out via WhatsApp, which is very conversational. So you answer one question, then you get the next. It's kind of like gamifying that experience. So that's something that you could look to potentially introduce moving forward as well.
I think WhatsApp for me would definitely be a preferred channel. Because I'm almost becoming a bit dead to my emails because I get so many emails a day. I have got that fatigue in some senses. So I think that could, if you really want to cut through the noise, using that as a channel in a considered way, like Rebecca said, might be a smart idea.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we've come to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much to you guys, the speakers, for coming along. Thanks to everyone who's listened today. Please feel free to add more comments with any questions or just share your pain points. We're here for you. We care about you too. If you want to have a personal conversation about how SourceFlow Engagement could work for your business, feel free to scan that QR code. We'll set up a call with either Helen or one of our heads of department, and they can kind of take you through it on an individual level. But yeah, thank you so much for today, everyone, and hope to speak to you and see you again soon. Oh, and the final thing I wanted to say was keep watching this space. More updates coming.
Yeah, plenty more coming.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.